Hello and welcome to the RCB Sports Show. My name is Nicholas Rynne and I'm joined here by Jamsey Mcconigley, who is a freelance reporter with the Clare Champion. And Jamesy is also a valuable member of the Kilmona Hurling Club and a curling player as well, which gives it. Welcome, Jamesy.
How are you, Nicholas? How's things?
Good. Jamesy, thanks for coming on. And of course, the big talking point of the week has been since last Saturday has been the hurling match between ourselves, between Clare and Kilkenny. Very disappointing. We went up full of hope, quietly confidence, but it just did not happen. What are your thoughts on where it all went wrong, I suppose, sir?
I'd be a fool, I suppose, to kind of differ from any other people, Nicholas, and I suppose you have the same point of view, but the first half kind of killed us in all honesty. The halftime score being 117 to 6 points. Look, to be fair, Clare hurling, they've always given you great great hope down through the years, but when you're trailing by 14 points at halftime, it's an awful big ask.
Yeah. I got the feeling after about 7 minutes, this just wasn't going to be our day. I thought we set up wrong anyway. John Conlon was a huge loss. I don't like calling out anybody. Paddy Fitzpatrick has won many games for 6 Mile Bridge. He's a lionheart of a player, but I don't think he had the pace for Kilkenny. And I thought it was he's not that experienced in inter-county. It was a big call to put him in there. And, you know,
he played last year.
Sorry?
He played last year.
Yeah, he did play last year, but he hasn't been a consistent player. Whereas we probably had other members in the panel who have a lot more experience. But anyway, it seemed that Adrian Mullen was moved on him almost straight away when they saw that. And Adrian Mullen, we all know what he did.
He scored 5 points.
Yeah, a lot of other players didn't send up either. So I mean, it's just that John Conlon was a huge loss. I felt the damage was done after about 6 or 7 minutes. You know, I don't know if their heads dropped, if they thought, well, you know, it just wasn't up to the pace of it anyway.
Yeah, I suppose the opening 10 minutes from reading different articles and things like that, and the kind of general concept in Clare is Murphy's Law. We went 2 points up, Shane O'Donnell put it over in front of the Hogan stand. And after that, what could have went wrong did go wrong, because Clare hit 4 wides in a row, in contrast to Kilkenny, who hit 6 points on the bounce. And yeah, swings round, but that's just the way it went for Clare on the day. And I think Kilkenny after that kind of pushed on a small bit, and in particular they were winning the dirty ball that was coming in. For Clare, it was kind of like direct ball, direct play in, and for Kilkenny, whatever direct play they were doing was kind of controlled, I suppose you could say, because they were pulling out the forwards, and it was more of wasn't a conventional six man forwards. It was more so they were dropping back in packs, and at stages Kilkenny were only playing maybe 4 people in the forwards, 2 in the half forward line and 2 in the full forward line, while they were dropping people back. Well, in contrast, I thought the full back line done a pretty decent job when the ball was coming in, because a lot of the time there at stages, Croke Park's it's quite spacious at that. And they looked like they were being isolated. And I thought Rory Hayes and Conor Cleary, Keane Nolan when he came on as well in particular, they done a pretty good job when they were asked to do like solo marking. And to be honest, I thought it was just like there's no sugarcoating this. Yeah. When you hit, so in contrast, Clare hit 11 wides in the opening half. Kilkenny hit 1. Kilkenny hit 117, so that's 18 scores in 37 minutes, 2 minutes additional time. Clare hit 6. They hit 11 wides. That's 17 shots at goal, and Kilkenny had 19 shots at goal. So 117 to 6. There's that's the big topic of question. Like,
yeah. 2 things, James, stood out for me watching it. I was at the Cusick stand side. There was a huge space between midfield into almost on that side of the pitch, right into the full forward line, at almost a channel where especially Adrian Mullen, but the Kilkenny just exploited that. They saw a chink in the defence and they exploited that. And then on the other side, we had the shots from outfield, but our full forward line misfired. Once again, I have to say that they didn't perform. You know, they didn't win any ball in there. and a lot of ball went in, high ball went in, low ball in front of them, and it just didn't seem to be able to keep the ball there and to hold it, apart from Shane O'Donnell at one stage. And obviously Tony Kelly was marked out of it, and that was on the cards, going to be on the cards. But those were the two areas I think we really struggled in.
Yeah, I think you hit it on the nail on the head there, because Kilkenny, as we aforementioned, that they brought back a couple of players to help out their defence, and it paid dividends towards the end, because numerous times Clare lumped in the ball and Hugh Lawler came out with the ball on top, or Mikey Butler or Paddy Deegan, whoever it may have been. But to be fair, their tackling was immense. Like, people give out about Clare hitting wide and that. Like, you can ask any of the players the pressure they were put under. It. You don't have to be like an all-star to know that the pressure those players are under during the 70 minutes, not just 20 minutes or blocks of 15 or whatever. It was the whole 70 minutes throughout. And no doubt about it, once they come up against Kilkenny, or against Limerick, sorry, in a few weeks' time, it's going to be the same.
Yeah, this was an All-Ireland semi-final, Jamesy. That doesn't wash, really. You know you're going to an All-Ireland final. You're playing Kilkenny. It's going to be tough, and you have to be ready for that. It seemed to be a surprise to us that Kilkenny were, to the players. I'm being critical here. I'm playing the devil's advocate. I've praised Brian Lohan every time I've come on this show since he took the job. I think he's done a marvellous job. I still think that today. I think he's the right man for the job. But on Saturday, we were calling out up in the stand. We were calling out to make changes, and they didn't come until half time. And unfortunately, at half time we were 14 points down, and we should have made changes, I think, in the full forward line much quicker, and settled the half back line much quicker, settled the back line much quicker. It wasn't that we didn't have the players. So I think that was probably why they were so hesitant when we needed some. It was evident, as I said, 7 minutes you could tell, but definitely 15 minutes you would know that there was surgery needed, and it didn't happen until half time.
I know that's a fair enough assessment, and as it was evident, as you said, that both Ian Gallivan and David Reedy were, I suppose, hooked off earlier on than they should have were expecting.
Yeah.
But for Clare, I thought John Connon was a huge loss in at centre back, and Paddy Fitzpatrick. It was hard. It's hard enough to get up to the game speed, but for an All-Ireland semi-final, it's a different kettle of fish for him, and to be thrown in the deep end like that, it is difficult. But I suppose if you're at intercounty, you have to expect that, and I suppose for him it was a bad day at the office, and for Clare in general.
Yeah. So I suppose, in the second half, then they did try their best, and you did get it down to, I think they got it down to the 8 or 9 points at the time, but the game seemed to, I suppose, Kilkenny threw a one-leg drew off the helmet, and he broke the momentum. The referee didn't help the momentum of the game either. I thought a few times he was harsh enough, not blaming the referee for or loss or anything, but we just didn't, and the goal that we craved I found it odd, and I'd be very critical, obviously, but I found it very odd that we brought on 2 forwards, and one of them ended up back in the half-back line. We continue with a 2-man full forward line when everybody knew that a goal was required, and you're not going to get it's going to be so hard to get a goal when your star corner forward to come on is back in the half-back line, back around midfield. We should have gone for more broke and pushed up and tried to engineer a goal. But apart from one effort, I don't think we got anywhere near getting a goal.
Well, I suppose David Fitzgerald's won in the second half, and Peter Duggan did go in at one stage to offload, but it just came that little bit too late for David Reedy. But yeah. I do agree with you in terms of the dark arts, I suppose, Kilkenny, and sure, of course, Brian Cody have it down to a T. There was stages there that Owen Murphy, I suppose, he took a bit long with puck outs and things like that. But sure, when you can boast a lead like that, I suppose of course you can do things like that, and it's up to Fergal Horgan to, I suppose, speed up the play and that. But Kilkenny, I suppose, are in the right to do it if they can, and if they'll be allowed to.
Yeah.
Why not do it? But secondly, the question about the goals, I suppose, obviously Clare, Kilkenny did filter back, as we were talking about earlier, and there was pockets of space opening up when Clare ran at them. But I don't know, Kilkenny just looked that slight bit hungrier for it. And in the second half, all the players could do, in particular Shane O'Donnell's second half performance, it's 3 points there, and he could have got a fourth, but he was done for steps. He was outstanding. And Mark Rogers just peeling off. I know there's plenty of people are coming out, like, first of all, people are disappointed, and that's the overriding feeling or emotion at the moment. But like did you think Clare were going to get out of Munster this year?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. The reason I'm being critical the reason I'm being critical, James, is you have to call it out when it happens. We have praised this team, and we love this team, and we'll follow them to the end of the earth if we have to. We had a great Munster championship, of course we had. Brilliant day against Limerick, even though we were beaten. We felt good even coming away. After that, we drew it. I'm just wondering, you've hit a point there. I just wondering, did the Munster championship take a huge amount out of us, whereas Kilkenny went through Leinster kind of lazily and just did what they had to do at the end, beat Wexford in the end. Not Wexford, they just got in. Yeah, they were beaten by Wexford even, and they didn't have to win that game even. So they were really relaxed all year. Cody probably had an eye on an All-Ireland semi-final long before Clare were even out of Munster. So is there an anomaly there that you have to go to beat Tipperary, you have to beat Cork, you have to beat Waterford, you have to have a huge game against Limerick, and then you have to go along and start off after a huge campaign in Munster? Is it a bit unfair or a bit lopsided? A bit like Kerry when they're playing football, they breeze through Munster and they're ready for an All-Ireland semi-final. Kilkenny have been doing this for years. They've had nobody in Leinster until recent years. Till they sort of Galway came into it and stepped up a bit, and Wexford have stepped up a bit. But they just seem to get a free ticket into an All-Ireland semi-final year after year. They're in it almost every year, and they know they're going to be in it.
But what do you think they could do, Nicholas?
I'm just wondering, was that a part of where we went wrong in the semi-final, that we had so much to do to get to a semi-final as opposed to what Kilkenny had to do?
Yeah, well, it's plain sight to see that it is fair to say that, like, Tipperary, Cork, Limerick, Waterford, and then the final again against Limerick, it's obviously going to take a lot out of the players. But I suppose that question kind of does come down to the players themselves. Because I wasn't out there, you weren't out there, but it's obviously going to take a lot out in their bodies. And like you seen there, the scoring that Clare were putting up in the Munster Championship this year was huge. I think the game has changed a lot. I was talking to different people about how possession based the game is. Like Ira Culligan would strike it out to Conor Cleary, he'd hand pass it back, and you see it in the league games as well. Clare would strike it out and they'd primarily hit it towards the wing backs if it was Ryan or it was Fitzgerald, whoever it was during the league campaign. But the way the game has been played now, I think the games are coming quick and fast, and there's way more games to be played and less training sessions, because you look at it, it comes down to the split season. So 3 weeks time, we're starting our club championship in Clare, and that whole before all that was dedicated to intercounty players. There was no intercounty players come league, no Clare Cup, no Cusack Cup, none of that for both hurling or football and different counties. Now the game is, the game has changed, and I don't know, maybe you agree with me or not, but I personally think that it comes for the better, because I remember a few years ago, Newmarket, I think it was Newmarket and 6 Mile Bridge played in a Clare Cup final down in Clonlara on the latter end of the year. It was November or December. Like, who wants to go play hurling?
Yeah,
it's not appetizing for supporters to be getting wet, or for players who maybe it's off season or whatever, wouldn't mind to go weekends away with their girlfriends or going at pints with the lads or whatever it may be. But when you're waiting for games like this, I think the structure which changed is a huge positive. And the crack that was had throughout, even Ennis, when Clare played Limerick, the money that's been pumped into the local economy. How many games were played at home? Tipperary was played in Thurles, Cork was played in Thurles, Limerick's played in Ennis, Waterford was played in Ennis, and then the Munster final was played down in Thurles again. We had 2 games at home, and it still pumped in a lot of money into the economy after everything that's happened with pre-COVID, post-COVID, or whatever. But the amount of money that's been brought in, the championship that's changed, I think it's very positive. For national journalists, okay, they might be turning their nose up towards club championship and things like that, but it's great to see that players who are playing it, the couple of nice months in the year, July, August, September, are dedicated to them, and they can play in the sun and good weather.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Like, and Brian Lohan is not in the comments, but it's great for the Southern Events. obviously. But I just think just to reiterate what I was saying, like it's just you have Kilkenny who have a month, they could go away and have a training camp in the middle of a championship. You go away and have a training camp, and Clare are just involved in CCC stuff, and so many other things like that were going on that they really didn't need, and then they have to get ready for game after game. So I think they need to fine tune it where it's a level playing field, where everybody has the same amount of games at the same amount of weeks. Okay, you will have a team who get into the Munster champions, and the Leinster champions are obviously going to get an extra bit of time. But I think they just have to. It just has to be a bit fairer. The amount of games played have to be evened up. I mean, if that was the Premiership, or if it was in rugby or anything else, there would be uproar of teams getting advantages of having long periods off where they can really prepare for one game. In the old days, Galway, when Galway were in Connacht, they had a whole summer to prepare for one All-Ireland semi-final, and that was deemed as being terribly unfair, and it was unfair, and probably unfair in Galway as well. But it just has to be more level. They have to look at it again, I think, anyway. But that's it. Look, we've had a great year, and I would congratulate Brian Lohan for we've had. I was so proud today that Limerick beat us an extra time. We drew with the All-Ireland champions 3 times. We're the only team that has done it, and we did it 3 times this year. That's fantastic, and you have to congratulate the lads, and in what they achieved there. And the selection committee, I want to see Brian Lohan there again next to continue with his what the program he has. Obviously, in the whole county now, hurling is really up again where it wasn't in such a great place. It's very proud of what the lads are doing. Like it's
Yeah, like as you were chatting about how like the positives to take out of the year, and that's like a lot of people are down after the result last day and the disappointment of it, because they know that this Clare team have serious potential, and they showed it again the last day. And I was aforementioned hope, and that's one thing that's always been kind of been linked with the Clare hurlers. May it be the team, the noughties, even the teams coming through. That game against Wexford, like that just showed us that it demonstrated what they can do, and the fight back that Clare hurling is kind of known for. And like we were talking about it there earlier about the Martin Keown's goal. Clare was still 8 points down. Once that goal went in, I was like, you know what? I think this is done. But before that, to say that you're 8 points down in an All-Ireland semi-final, you still think that the team can dig deep and get you out of there. That says a lot for Brian Lohan and what he's done in the last year, because the gap has well and truly been closed between Clare, Limerick, the top, like the teams that are associated with the top teams. But Nicholas, getting back to you're on about the structure. Do you feel that maybe the structure could be changed slightly, or do you think that provincial is the right way to go? Or
I don't think you're ever going to get rid of the provincials, because there's too much invested there. The Munster Council aren't going to, or the Leinster Council aren't going to just hand that over. Like the Munster final is a huge day. Even still, it's a huge day. I mean, the Munster final this year was the game of probably the decade, I would say. It was a huge game. Okay, maybe I don't think I am. Everybody was talking about it down at Tipperary, Cork, everywhere. Like so, everyone you meet will always tell you that. So that's a huge occasion. It's the balance I'm talking about. It's going to be. I don't think you'll ever see the end of the Munster Championship. I just genuinely, maybe we'd all like an open draw, but we've an open draw in the league, and it doesn't appear to inspire anybody. So but I just feel that given a team, you have to look at it again, that everybody has an equal amount of games, and that's okay. You can't do that exactly down to the team, but you can't have a team having a month off while another team is involved in a serious game. Maybe that's the backdoor structure. Maybe the games should be played in Munster and in Leinster, and then bring out more teams and give them an equal amount of games.
Well, I suppose
or have a separate Munster Championship, and it's always a separate Munster Championship now. But you definitely can't have a team having a huge advantage of a rest of time to prepare.
But if Limerick win another All-Ireland Championship this year, do you think people will be questioning it? Because they'll have come through a very tricky Munster, and then they'll have went on to win the All-Ireland.
Well, put it this way, Kilkenny have had a month to prepare for an All-Ireland semi-final. Clare had only 2 weeks. So Kilkenny had a camp. They had a training camp to prepare for either Clare or Wexford. And Brian Cody admits it. He said the camp they had, they could train and train and train and train. Clare couldn't train. And then they had to deal with injury. They also had to deal with injuries. And I think there was players out there on Saturday evening who were carrying injuries as well. At least one of our top players was carrying an injury. I'm certain of that. And you know, so he had to play like so. It's just an area I think it needs to be at least looked at. And players should be asked, and managers should be asked. I know managers shouldn't be making the rules, but players should certainly be asked. How was your year? How did it work for you? Like, is it tough going to be playing all those games? Or is it something you want to be doing? I know they want to be playing every Sunday, but it's just that they need to balance out that a team doesn't have a clear advantage. You know, so
yeah, you can only imagine that Clare are going to analyze this and take a lot of critically analyze it and take a lot of positives out of it, because they did come up against a Brian Cody team who's, I know people are saying they're coming on the long grass. I think there was a lot of hype, to be honest, in the media with saying both Clare are going to overcome a Kilkenny side that aren't as strong as what they used to be. This Kilkenny team have won the last 3 Leinsters in a row. Like, to say that they're in the long grass, and Clare, who haven't won a provincial title since 1998, haven't played in Croke Park since 2018 against Galway 4 years ago. And Kilkenny, as I say, it's their playing fields. They're there year in, year out. They must play there at least 2 or 3 times or 4 times or whatever throughout the year. So that's a lot of times we're playing for a team that, in contrast, a team who's a Munster team who's played there once in 4 years. Yeah,
very true, Jamsey. Yeah, we leave it at that. We're very proud of our Clare team. Very proud of all our players. They put in a huge effort. To you know, you're still playing hurling. You know the effort it takes to play at any level now, let alone play at inter-county and get to an All-Ireland semi-final is a huge deal as well. So well done to the lads, and we look forward to seeing them. I'm looking forward to seeing the lads in the club championship now in a couple of weeks' time coming up. Just switching to Camogie for a second there. Unfortunately, the Camogies had a great year, but they just came up short on probably 3 big games. And that was a hugely disappointing. And they were beaten last Saturday by Waterford, which means they're in a relegation playoff now against Offaly. So they were seconds away from winning the Munster Championship against Cork in Parky, I think it was in Parky Ring, and now they find themselves in a relegation battle.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for them. They lost to Waterford the last day, 2-12 to 1-12 up against relegation, Offaly in a fortnight's time. But I suppose they dug deep from I didn't see the game now, but because that's another talking point about the times of the games for any Clare supporters that want to see both their inter-county senior hurlers and Camogie team, and they didn't really get that opportunity on Saturday. So that's it's crazy, I suppose, for supporters. But I suppose on the flip side, the Clare Camogie team, unfortunate, and there was one girl in particular that was standout. Beth Carton, she got 1-6 for Waterford. So I suppose Clare can go in with their heads held still somewhat reasonably high, and they know that they're John Carmony's men going to have to get their hands dirty and get over the line again next week if they want to stay up in senior. Yeah,
it's a fine line. In the junior Camogies are flying it. They beat Cavan. I think they beat Cavan by a point. I'm not certain of facts here, but I know that they're into an All-Ireland semi-final, and there's a chance if they can get to the final. There's a chance that they probably could meet Cavan again. So that would make an intriguing final. But they're having a fantastic run right through this championship, and deserve great credit for what they're doing.
Nicholas, I have one question for you before we finish up.
Yes.
So you're not sitting on the fence. Who do you think will win the All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship?
Yes. Sorry? Who do you think will win? Who do I think will win it?
Limerick or Kilkenny?
Oh, it's a 6-marker. I think Limerick were lucky enough to get over Galway. If Galway had got a good start, I think they would have been there at the end. Only for Aaron Gillane, he had a fantastic game. He was outstanding, an outstanding game. But I think that they are beginning to, and if Kilkenny see a weakness, Brian Cody is the master. He's the master. I don't care if people have called for him to step down. He's just a master tactician. And I just have a sneaky feeling Kilkenny playing Croke Park is like their backyard. They've played so many games. They're there Sunday after Sunday. I think I would go for Kilkenny. That's my gut feeling. Kilkenny just really want to win this one. John Kiley's team are a fantastic team. They've given us great days. We just have to stand back and admire them. We're jealous of them. We're their neighbours. But at the end of the day, we stand back and admire great hurlers. And they have a great team. They have a very powerful bench as well, which could be an advantage to them. I just think Kilkenny, will be full of hurling on Sunday. But it should be. I'm really looking forward to it. What do you think, Jim?
It was brought to my attention only a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation with a gentleman, and he was telling me that the years that end in 2s belong to Kilkenny. And I done my research, and I was actually just looking through it. 2012, they played Galway after the replay. I remember Joe Canny put the ball over.
That's right, yeah.
They won that replay 3-22 to 3-11. 2002, what was the score?
2002.
Yeah, who did they play?
I just do my research on that. What was it?
They played Clare and Croke Park, and they beat them 220 to 19 points.
In 2002, that's right. Yeah.
1992, they beat Cork. They beat Cork well. 1982, they beat Cork 318 to 113. And 1972, they beat Cork 324 to 511. So maybe I don't know if you believe in...
If you believe in Pishrogs.
It could be the year for Kilkenny and Brian Cody to potentially ride off into the sunset with one last all.
Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of those things they do seem to. There's something in those little antidotes, and they make it interesting and intriguing. Just a word for our ladies footballers as well. They're going really well. Our junior team are going really strong, and we're looking forward to a big game from them as well in the Ireland semi-final. So. Our big teams might be gone. Our footballers, unfortunately, didn't have the best day in headquarters either. But the ladies footballers and the Camogies are still alive and kicking, and they deserve to be followed. There's a big game coming up now, two or three big games coming up in the next week or two. You looking forward to the club championship, Jamsey?
I suppose I am, Nicholas. Like for myself and yourself and people like who are in the local business or local media industry, we're going to be incredibly busy now. The next once championship starts, I believe it's 2 weeks of hurling. So from then on, it's just going to be weekends of jam-packed action of both hurling and football. So it should be interesting to see how it goes this year. Yeah,
it'll be all systems go. I enjoyed, after. Bit deflated after Croke Park and that after 2 Sundays in a row, but a little bit of a break. I went back to the Willie Clancy for a couple of evenings, listen to a bit of Irish music and just get the battery recharged to go again. But I am looking forward to the club championship in both hurling and football, and there should be some big games there. So
you always bring out sizable crowds too, especially down in West Clare for the football. Like you always see games in Doombeg or Cora Clare or Kilrush or Kilmehel or wherever that may be. And they always bring in quite sizable crowds, so it's always nice for the local people and the interest they have in the sport as well. Yeah, whether it's senior, intermediate, or junior, there's always quite a big following, and it's good to see, and it keeps people ticking over, I suppose, for the summer.
It's a lovely day to go back to Doombeg and sit in the stand there. There's always that great atmosphere, and for the likes of me and you to listen to that local knowledge. What they really know their football, and they really enjoy that. They just know their stuff, and they can tell you how a game is going long before you can see it yourself. And down to Kilmehel and places like that, it's just and Milltown. I love all those games, and the characters in there as well, and in the great teams like in great games. I met a man who was at a wedding there last week, and he met a man who had 9 county final medals in his pocket, and he played in 19. Wasn't that a fair record?
Was it you, Nicholas?
No, I didn't get to those heights, but and unfortunately my career is over now, so I don't think I will. Jamesy, thanks very much for taking the time out here and coming in to talk to me. Very interesting point you made there. I've a bit of food for thought now, and well done on coming on. Upwards and onwards now for the club championship, and before long we'll be back watching our county team again playing in the National League. We won't feel it. And thanks very much, Jamesy.
Thanks, Nicholas.
Thanks.